right, welcome back to People, Passion, Power. So excited about our guest today. Behind us is the Patuxent River, and today is about 100 degrees outside, Jay, and we've got the perfect guest, the perfect location. He is absolutely my favorite photographer in the world. I can't make this up. We'll talk more about this in a second. And that is Jay Fleming. Jay, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, I'm so excited about you. I have to tell you this story, which you've already heard from me. We were at a restaurant, and I was sitting at a seafood restaurant, and I saw this beautiful artwork on the wall, and I was fascinated by it. And I had to ask the manager and the owner. I said, "Who is that? I have to get one of those." And it was you. And that beautiful picture of the crab hangs out in our office, and we look at it every day. So the show is called People, Passion, Power. I've got to know you a little bit. We love to talk about people who pursue their passions in life, and you check that box. You've been a photographer since the age of 13 or younger?
13, yep.
And this is what you do as a profession.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be able to pursue my passion and, developed my work around what I love to do. So it just came naturally.
So how does that happen? Like at age 13, you go, this is what I'm going to do. Like some kids say, I'm going to play in the MLB or NFL. You said I'm going to be a professional photographer. Talk me through it.
Well, first, I'd grown up around photography. My dad, Kevin Fleming, he had been a photographer since he was in high school. He picked up a camera in high school and started shooting sports, and then made his way up to the local newspaper in Delaware, then made his way up to a better newspaper, and then made his way up to National Geographic, just as a young, 25-year-old from Delaware. And he traveled the world for National Geographic for about 25 years, doing different assignments for them.
And you've been featured in National Geographic, some of your work, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Did I see that?
Yep, a couple pieces in the Geographic. But my dad was definitely my biggest influence in the early part of my years, because he would go on assignments and I'd be down at the beach. He lives in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And instead of going to summer camp, I would just tag along with him and work with him. So it just came naturally.
And how do you sustain a career like that? I was talking to you a little bit earlier. Like, it's a full-time job for you, right? Like this is it.
7 days a week usually, but I love what I do, so I rarely feel like I'm working.
Can you describe that feeling of loving what you do as a profession?
You just look forward to every day, and every day is different for me, and I'm very fortunate for that. My job is very dynamic and diverse, and no 2 days are the same. So it's exciting to get up and go to work. I don't dread getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go out on the water, because every day is different, and all the subjects that I photograph are all different.
Your pieces, and we'll show you guys a few here. I'm going to show you guys the crab one that I have, my favorite one. There's something magical about your pieces, and you get this, and we've been in this conversation briefly before, where it looks, it's a print. I may not even be describing it right, but it's a print, but yet it looks like a piece of artwork, like it's magical. How do you do that?
So the print that you have is a print that's done on canvas, and it's done on the same printer that I would use to print something on paper, but the canvas really, the treatment that I give it, that me and my framer have developed, really makes it come to life. And what we do is we mount the canvas and then varnish it, so it does have that feel of a painting. And unlike a paper print, which when you frame you would traditionally put behind glass, the canvas has no glass, so there's no glare.
Okay.
And it's just you and the image. There's nothing in between you and the print. So that's a method of presentation that I really like. And you can see, like when you have it hanging in your office, there's no glare from the ambient light from windows and that type of thing. So it really is a great way to naturally present your image.
It's magical. It looks like light's reflecting off of it, and it's pretty special. And I'm excited for you guys to see some of his work. Some of you probably already know Jay and his work. You did a book in 2016, is that right? Tell me about this one here, Working the Water. 2016, I get that year right?
Yeah, Working the Water was published in 2016 in the fall of that year, and I was doing an assignment for Wooden Boat Magazine, which is a magazine that specializes in wooden boats, and I was covering the boats on the Chesapeake Bay that people were using to oyster, the skipjacks. And I went out with skipjack captain on the Eastern Shore, who I had connected with through my mom, His name was Art Daniels. He was 93 at the time and still running a skipjack.
Wow.
And Art kind of just inspired me to look deeper into the Chesapeake Bay seafood industry, which is so iconic. And it evolved into this idea of covering all the different fisheries up and down the Chesapeake Bay. So covering all the industries in these small coastal communities that, you know, made up the Chesapeake Bay seafood industry.
Is the Chesapeake Bay, is it healthy? How is it right now?
Unfortunately, the Chesapeake Bay has a lot of issues that it faces due to, you know, development, a lot of runoff, like from agriculture, nutrient type things, and you know, Chesapeake Bay is in peril. There's a lot of people living in the watershed, and you know, when water hits the land, when it rains, it's got to go somewhere. So it all goes into the bay's tributaries and eventually into the bay. But that being said, you know, even with all the Chesapeake Bay's problems, there are still a lot of areas in the bay that are incredibly beautiful. And you know, this book is a look at, you know, the more pristine, not pristine necessarily, but the areas in the bay that are still producing these sustainable fisheries.
Mm-hmm.
So
and where do people order this book? And we're going to talk about Island Life, your next one coming out in 2021. But I can tell you guys, some of the images in this book are absolutely fascinating, and you need this in your home for sure. But where do we find this?
The book is available on my website. I don't sell through any like large retailers like Amazon. I just kind of do it all individually since it is self-published. The book's available on my website, which is jflemingphotography.com. Fleming with one M.
Got it. And you I was reading something about you. You've got into conservation. Was that part of your plan, like awareness around the Chesapeake Bay? Like you're pursuing your passion. It's a career. That's all fun. But there's benefits that are happening too, aren't there?
Absolutely. I think the photography is an incredibly valuable tool to teach people to appreciate the resources that the Chesapeake has and to inspire them to conserve what we have. You know, we want the bay to be sustainable for future generations, to not only enjoy the seafood but to enjoy the beauty of it, to, you know, go out fishing on the water, to spend time with your family on the water, to be able to swim in the water. I mean, that's all stuff that, you know, we love about this area, and that's stuff that, you know, I try to convey through my pictures, that it's worth saving and it's worth fighting for.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like I said, we are sitting on the Patuxent, and my 3 kids are down below right now swimming in the river, and it's one of our favorite places on earth is to be on this river, and to be a part of it is a special treat. You also do workshops for aspiring photographers or professional photographers. Tell me about the workshops.
Yeah, so the workshops, that's something that kind of came to life in 2015, and a photographer, like an amateur from DC, was down at the Waterman's Wharf at Kent Narrows in Graysonville.
Yeah.
Her and her husband have a house down there, and she was just walking around taking pictures of people on their boats and you know, people working on their gear and stuff. And she got talking to this waterman, and he's actually in the book, one of the clammers, George Thomas. And George mentioned my name, and Marianne went back and looked me up, and she just like called me blindly and asked if I would do like a workshop with her and her friend from Arlington. So I took them to Smith Island, which is a waterlocked island on the Chesapeake Bay, the only like offshore island where people live in Maryland. Mm-hmm. It's a community made up of primarily watermen and, you know, people who make a living on the water in some way, shape, or form. So I took them out there, and they absolutely loved it. The wildlife photography opportunities out there are incredible. There's a pelican nesting colony where there's probably about 5,000 pairs of pelicans that nest every year on these marshes, and I describe it as like the Galapagos of the Chesapeake. So,
was that from yesterday's Facebook post, or was that where was that one?
That was a different place. That was down in Chincoteague on another workshop.
I told you guys I'm paying close attention to this guy. What is it like, by the way, to have folks like myself who know you, and you have no idea who I am other than I'm wearing my name on the T-shirt? But what's it like? I mean, your world's expanding, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely snowballing, but I love it. I think it's great. The more people that see my work, the better. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
And you were talking about Smith Island. The second book is going to focus on, I'm ripping a bug off of me here while we're doing this. The second book, Island Life, is going to focus on Smith Island and Tangier Island. Tell us about that.
Yes, so Island Life is basically a documentation of what it's like for these communities to be completely isolated from the mainland by the water. So how the isolation has shaped the communities. So looking at, like, you know, the transportation, like how do they get their food out there? How do the kids go to school? How do they get trash off the island? It's going to be a documentation of what it's like to live in that isolation.
Are those islands shrinking? Is that?
They are eroding away, and it's happening at an alarming rate. In particular, Tangier. Tangier is in Virginia, and Tangier is quite a bit smaller than Smith Island, but the population is about double. And it's definitely imperative that you know, some action is taken with Tangier to stabilize the shoreline. There's actually a jetty that is being built out there now.
It's happening?
Happening right now, but it's not really what they need, but at least it's something. You know, you get these bad storms, these northwest winds that whip across the Chesapeake Bay, and if you go out to certain spots at Tangier, you can visibly see chunks of land falling into the Chesapeake Bay.
Wow.
And that's threatening the sustainability of the community. I mean, it's to a point where, you know, a bad hurricane or, you know, a couple really bad storms could do some serious damage to property on the island.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's definitely scary. I think, you know, I don't want to say it, but I think we're due for a big hurricane on the bay, and, you know, the effects of that could be pretty detrimental to these communities that are only like 3 or 4 feet above sea level. So,
do you become part of these communities as you're working on the book? I mean, you started working on the new book in what year, 2017?
Yes, 2017, right after I had kind of finished the first 2 printings of Working the Water. I kind of embarked on the Island Life project, and I have a chapter that's actually called Island Life in Working the Water, but it's just a much more in-depth analysis of those 2 islands.
He pays attention to things. We're doing like no shoes, real casual. That's not the island life we're talking about. We're talking about an island life where there's a working community.
Yeah.
And that'll be pretty fascinating to see. What's been some of your favorite pieces, some of your favorite shoots, some of your favorite moments?
So overall, I would say my favorite moment is when I connect with people that I'm photographing, and when they become friends, and that bond that I can maintain with them. Like a lot of these people on Smith Island, you know, through the workshops and through my trips out there where I'm working on my book, you know, just being able to connect with people through my photography, that's favorite part of it to me. In terms of favorite shoots, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Done so many of them, and they all kind of blend together, but one of my most notable shoots was actually in 2010, before I even started that book or Island Life. It was a trip out to Highland Island, and I'll send you the picture that we can put on.
Yeah.
Put on here. But Highland Island is a island in the middle of Chesapeake Bay that was formerly inhabited. So just like Smith Island, Tangier, Highland had a community on it, and there were about 70 homes on the island, some of which washed away over time, but a lot of them were dismantled and moved to other communities around the Chesapeake Bay. So there was one home left on the island, and I had seen pictures of the house on the internet, just this before the days of Facebook, just browsing like Google Images and looking at stuff online. And this was before I had a motorboat that I could, you know, now I could get out there in 30 minutes, but this was a little different. I took a kayak out there, camping gear, and took 2 friends with me, one of which was on a stand-up paddleboard, and we paddled 15 miles to get there and camped out, and I was able to get photos of the house. It was about 6 months before it fell into the water, the last house on Highland Island.
Wow.
So I didn't know it at the time, but that picture to me is one of my more iconic images, just because of what it represents, and it also represents a piece of history.
Yeah.
And it, you know, that documenting history to me is very motivating to get out and continuing to do the work that I do. especially with Smith Island and Tangier, because they are rapidly changing.
When you take a picture, do you go, I got it, that was it, that's the picture? Is that how it works for you?
Sometimes. And sometimes I just can't help myself. I just keep shooting.
Okay.
Because, you know, you have digital cameras and you can shoot 2,000, 3,000 pictures, and it doesn't cost you anything but your time to go through them. So it's not like you have the expense which you had on film. So it's a lot different shooting digital. You know, you can take a lot more risks. You can experiment a lot more. It's sort of like trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the techniques that I've been using for years were first developed for me through trial and error, like the underwater photography, like the picture of the crab that you have. You know, you don't really think of the Chesapeake Bay as a place where anybody would do underwater photography.
Right.
You know, because the water's not very clear. I mean, the best visibility that you see sometimes is like 6, 7 feet. I mean, that'd be incredible to see 6 or 7 feet. So that the whole underwater photography thing started, I think it was in 2009, with me just going out and just shooting a ton of pictures and, you know, seeing how they came out.
Yeah.
And then it evolved to me kind of being a little more strategic in timing what I was shooting and where I was shooting stuff. And it's evolved into me being able to kind of now go out consistently and do it. So the trial and error and the ability, digital just opened the doors with so many things. It's incredible.
I love the trout picture from Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I love that one's going to be in my living room. So when my wife watches this, that's the Christmas gift you can get to me for our living room. The lighthouse. I saw the lighthouse with the. I'm going to mess the name of the moon up, but it was a fire moon. Not the. I'm going to botch it. I got to look in the book for this one, but it had the very red moon behind it, and the lighthouse was rocking.
Oh,
tell me so I don't mess it up.
Lighthouse was rocking. Was it Sharp's Island?
That sounds right.
The one that's leaning?
Yes, that sounds right. You've got so many good lighthouse pictures, and
too many.
You can't even keep track of them.
A lot to keep track of.
Yeah, it's all fascinating. So for people that are out there that want to pursue their passion or want to choose photography as a career, you say what?
Just get after it.
What does that mean?
You have to motivate yourself to get after it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to want to do it as well. I mean, it's not easy, but you know, like I said, I love what I do, so it never feels like work. Getting up at 4 in the morning for a sunrise shoot in the summer, that sucks.
Right.
It's awful. I had my workshops down in Virginia last week, and I was up at 3:30 every morning, 6 days in a row. And that's nothing for a waterman. I'm not a waterman. I'm not that tough.
Yeah.
But, you know, for me, it's, you know, I get to bed at like 10 o'clock after entertaining people all day, you know, catering to their photography needs, organizing food, and then I have to get up and do it again.
Yeah.
But I love it. So
you gotta love it.
Yeah,
you've gotta love it to do it.
You've got to want to do it, and if you don't love what you're doing, and if you don't want to be doing it, whether or not you're getting paid, that's going to show in your work.
Yeah, yeah, your passion comes through. There's no doubt about it. Like it's just, you can see it. It's there. What's next for you? Like, where do you go? You got books. You've been in National Geographic. You get hired by different corporations. You're in conservation. What the heck is next for you in your world?
My plan is to just keep doing what I'm doing and expanding my reach. You know, going beyond the Chesapeake Bay. Obviously, I'll still always maintain my connection with the Chesapeake Bay because it's my home. It's where I'm from. I love it, but I want to expand my work to the whole Atlantic coast. So I want to do a book similar to Working the Water, but documenting all the Atlantic coast fisheries.
Oh, nice.
So that's the next project after Island Life.
All of the Atlantic coast fisheries.
Yep. So it's going to be a big undertaking. But I've been working on it here and there for about, I would say, 4 years. So I went up to Maine a couple years ago to document the lobster fishery. I've been down to Georgia to go shrimping, South Carolina to go shrimping. I went to Cuba twice.
Nice.
More of just a fun trip, but you know, I was still working.
Yeah.
And I documented the different commercial fishing, like working waterfront harbors in Cuba, on the north end of Cuba, kind of near Havana and a little further west of Havana. But you know, I want to do that project and kind of make it more of an international scope, and continue to document the seafood industry and life on the water.
Oh man, I am fascinated by this guy, folks. Make sure you pick up this book, Working on the Water. Island Life is coming out in 2021. Check out his website. I think you'll be fascinated just like me. And Jay, thanks for coming on the show. We're going to make you an honorary friend of the Jason Martin group here. So
awesome.
we got you a hat you can sport when you're
Thank
on
you.
the water.
I need it. Keep that sun off.
Yeah, we'll keep the sun off. And Jay and I are going to jump on the boat and enjoy the evening here. Jay, it's been a pleasure, my man. I look forward to watching your career continue to evolve, and I will follow you for sure. And I'm going to fill my house with your artwork. So I appreciate it.
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
It's just people, passions.